Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shelley, and I'm going to be your tutor for the next half an hour as we discuss skeleton notes, your shortcut to NCLEX Success. Before we jump into that, just a couple of things really quick. We do have a Q&A open for this session, and so if you have any questions while I'm talking today, put those questions in the Q&A, and Jennifer will be there to answer your questions. If they are responses to anything I'm asking, questions and interaction that we're doing together, you can use the chat box for that. So welcome everyone. I'm glad to have you here. It looks like we've got a great group. I would love to find out, first of all, where you're joining from. So just tell us in that chat box where you're calling in from, what state, what country. It's fun to see how widespread Archer Review is. It looks like we have Ohio, Chicago, Texas, Jacksonville, Wisconsin, Canada, Ohio, New York. It's going so fast. I know I'm missing a lot. New Jersey, another Canada, Michigan, New York, Hawaii, Texas, Canada, Saudi, the UK, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all around the world. We've got nursing students joining us to learn a little bit more about how to be successful on the NCLEX. So welcome everybody. I'm glad to have you here and I'm excited to share a really fun study tool with you for the next 30 minutes. As you know, the title of this is Skeleton Notes. Do any of you know what skeleton notes are? If you're familiar with skeleton notes, tell us in the chat box and I'll give you a hint. We're not talking about the bones in your body. It's not that kind of a skeleton. Has anybody heard of skeleton notes before, or is this a brand new concept for everybody? I've got one person saying they have no idea. The fact that nobody else is saying anything. Oh, let's see. Danielle says basic notes that guide you. That is that you are right on track with that, but it looks like for most of you, this is a brand new concept. So this is going to be fun. I'm going to introduce to you what skeleton notes are, why they're useful as you study, how you can create them. We're going to fill some skeleton notes in together, and then we'll kind of pull it all together, and I'll help you understand why skeleton notes are an effective tool as you are preparing for the NCLEX. All right, so first of all, what are skeleton notes? They are partially completed notes that provide a structured outline of key concepts with blanks for you to fill in to help with active learning. So that's kind of the official definition of skeleton notes. To put it in a little bit easier words, it's basically an outline from a lecture, from a video, from the textbook, something like that, where you create an outline with just the basic headings on it and you leave everything blank. You leave the details, the definitions, you leave all of that blank, and then you come back and fill it in. And it's a great way to test yourself to see how well you understand a specific concept. Here's an example of what a skeleton note looks like. This is one that I put together on fluids and electrolytes. And you can see they took the topic of sodium. They've kept the major headings there as the kind of correlates with the lecture. And they've left blanks for you to fill in. And so this is kind of what a skeleton note looks like. Let's talk through some of the key features and benefits, and then we'll practice filling one out and give you a little better idea of how to use these. So some of the key features of skeleton notes is it's a pre-filled structure. It has those basic headings on there, but the definitions, those types of things are left blank. It has those blanks or prompts for you to fill in. It has just enough on there so that you know what you're supposed to fill in, but you have to figure out and remember what goes in that blank. It encourages active recall, and we're going to talk more about that at the end of our time today. It is very useful for reviewing, and it is a great way to quiz yourself and find those knowledge gaps. The benefits of skeleton notes is it focuses on those key concepts. It helps you with improved retention. It's really a guided learning process. And once again, active recall. That phrase you're going to hear a few times today because skeleton notes are perfect to work through active recall. I will explain where Archer does provide skeleton notes in just a moment, Isabel, so we will get there. All right, so I'm going to just take a little side note here for a moment and just mention our SurePass combo. SurePass combo is Archer's #1 recommended package. It includes everything you need to prepare for the NCLEX. It includes our on-demand videos. It includes our live lectures and our live lectures. It includes our Q bank, our 3-day live review. It really has everything you need to study, review, and prepare for the NCLEX. If you are interested in more information on our SurePass combo, RNs can scan the code on the left, PNs can scan the code on the right. All right, let's talk about how you can create your own skeleton notes. So to create your own skeleton notes, start with a lecture. Maybe you watched our live lecture yesterday. It was on maternity. And if you watch that, you have the slides, you have your notes, you could create some skeleton notes on maternity to kind of review and quiz yourself and see where you're at. So pick a lecture topic that you need a little extra review on, and then create an outline. You can take the slides, you can take the information from the textbook, you can take your notes and turn it into a blank outline that looks similar to what I just showed you on the fluids and electrolytes. Put those key words in there, those key headings on that outline, and then leave blanks. If there's 3 or 4 bullet points that hit underneath a certain heading, then leave those 3 or 4 lines blank to remind yourself that you need to fill in three key points on that topic. You're going to leave the major definitions, formulas, details, diagrams, charts. You're going to leave that off. The only thing you're putting on there are those major headings that will guide you towards the information that you need to fill in. So once you've created your own skeleton notes, how do you use them? Well, first you're going to watch a lecture. So you watch a lecture, you take your notes, you review the slides, you go through that whole review process that you're already doing. And when you're feeling pretty confident in the information that you've reviewed, put all of your notes, your slides, everything away and pull out those skeleton notes. And then you're going to fill those skeleton notes out to the best of your ability without looking at any of your notes or any of your resources. So it's going to do a great job of quizzing you, figuring out what you know and finding those gaps in your knowledge. It's okay if you cannot fill in every line on those skeleton notes. I don't think I could either off the top of my head, so it's all right. What you're doing is figuring out where those gaps are so you know where to focus your attention. If, like we mentioned before, the maternity skeleton notes, if you were doing it on maternity, you'd fill out what you could fill out. Those 3 or 4 or 5 areas that you couldn't do that you left blank, you would know that's where you need to focus your study time. There's no reason to keep reviewing and keep studying the stuff you already know. But if you go back and review the stuff that you couldn't fill into those skeleton notes, that's going to help increase your knowledge and it's going to help you the next time you pull those out to be able to fill them in a little more completely. All right, does that make sense? Are there any questions so far before we try it out? All right, well, let's give it a try. I have a sample of skeleton notes here on the cardiac system. You can see this goes through the basics. It has the basics. If you watch the cardiac lecture that we have, this kind of follows along with it. It starts out asking you about blood flow through the heart, hemodynamics. It's got 6 different hemodynamic terms here with the word listed, but the definition is left off. It's asking some specific questions. After hemodynamics, it moves on to coronary artery disease. Then it moves on to myocardial infarction. So it's hitting those key topics. It's asking you to fill in for each of these disorders what it is, the terminology you need to know, assessment, labs, treatment. It gives those same basic headings for everything, and you get to fill in the details and test yourself to see how you're doing. So let's fill this cardiac skeleton note out together. I'm going to just increase that size a little bit so you guys can see it better. And this starts with blood flow through the heart. So if we are going to list the steps of blood flow through the heart, tell me in the chat, where does the blood start when it first enters the heart? Be brave, put it in there. Yeah, it starts with the superior inferior vena cava. That's kind of where it starts outside of the heart. When it hits the heart itself, what is the first part of inside the heart that hits? Yes, right atrium. So I'm just going to type in right atrium on that first step. From that right atrium, what is the next thing that the heart passes? Tricuspid valve. Thank you. Hopefully my spelling will be good today. After the tricuspid valve, where does that blood go next? Right ventricle. Very good. And then where does it go? From the right ventricle, where does it head to? Yeah, we hit the pulmonary valve. And then that pulmonary artery out to the lungs. So we're not really in the heart at that point. From the lungs, it's going to come through that pulmonary vein. It's going to come back to the heart. And when it enters back to the heart, where does it come in? Left atrium. Great job. After the left atrium, what comes next? Mitral valve. Great job. You guys know your heart for sure. All right, after mitral valve, where does that blood go? Left ventricle, very good. And finally, what is the last valve that it's going to pass through? Yeah, it goes through the aortic valve, then it's going to go through the aorta and it's going to be distributed throughout the body. So this is our basic blood flow through the heart. I did a great job here. I remembered all of those steps. I remembered everything as I felt this one in. So I'm feeling pretty good about my blood flow through the heart. Let's think about hemodynamics now. These definitions get a little more tricky. What does preload mean? Give me a definition in the chat of what a definition of preload when we're talking hemodynamics. Yeah, it is the amount of blood that is returning to the right side of the heart. Great job. What about afterload? How would you define afterload? Okay, I see some good answers. I got a couple of differing opinions here, but it is the amount of pressure which the left ventricle must pump to eject blood. So that was fantastic. I think we saw little bits of pieces of that from different people. Compliance. Give me a definition of compliance. I don't even know what compliance is. And that's okay. If you're doing your skeleton notes and you don't know what something is, just skip it. Just skip it and leave it blank. So we're going to say, I don't know compliance. I'm going to move on to contractility. Anyone know what contractility is? Yeah, contractility is the strength of contraction of, oh, sorry, I spelled that wrong, contraction of the heart muscle. So that is what contractility is. What is stroke volume? Anyone have a definition for stroke volume? Awesome. That's a perfect definition. It's the volume, oops, let me click on that. The volume of blood pumped out of the ventricle, oops, with each contraction. All right, and finally, cardiac output. What is the definition of cardiac output? Amount of blood in 1 minute, exactly. It is the amount of blood pumped through the whole circulatory system in 1 minute. All right, we did pretty good on those definitions. Compliance, we didn't quite get that one, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up if you didn't fill in every blank on those skeleton notes, because that's the whole purpose of these, is to find those gaps in your knowledge. Let's go on and do a little bit more. Cardiac output. We determine that is the amount of blood that's pumped through the body in 1 minute. Why is cardiac output important? And we need to come up with 3 reasons why cardiac output is important. Great job. We have got the formula there. Cardiac output equals heart rate times the stroke volume. Absolutely. Yeah, tissue perfusion is a big one. That is definitely a big reason why cardiac output is important. We want to get that oxygen to the tissues. Let's see. In the it's good for kidney function. All of our organs need that perfusion, absolutely. And so we could just put organs down there. It's important for the organs to function correctly. The kidney, the liver, everything depends on good perfusion and that cardiac output. And delivery of oxygen. Thank you. I think that's another great answer. All right, so we came up with 3 reasons why cardiac output is so important. I'm not going to take the time to fill all of this in, but next it's asking, what does poor cardiac output look like? So what does it look like if your client is not having good cardiac output? Tell me in the chat. What would you see? What would be evidences of poor cardiac output in your client? Cyanosis, low blood pressure, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing. Absolutely. We can think through all the different systems. We talked about that cardiac output is important for every system in the body. Think through the different systems. What is it going to do if you're not getting that blood in your lungs? What is it going to do if it's not going to your brain? Decreased level of consciousness. The lungs are going to be short of breath. They're going to have crackles, possibly some rales. Your skin's going to be cool and clammy. Great job. You guys are coming up with fantastic answers here. So as you can see, these skeleton notes are a way to quiz yourself. They're a way to figure out what did I remember from that lecture and where do I need to study some more. After you go through and fill out this entire thing on cardiac, you're probably going to have some gaps. You're probably going to find a few places where you couldn't remember exactly what it was. Working together, we did an awesome job figuring this out. But what I would recommend doing at this point, after you fill out all of your skeleton notes, then go back to your lecture notes, pull out those slides from that lecture, and go and compare and look through this and make sure, okay, this looks right. I got all of those steps correct in my blood flow through the heart, so I'm good there. I don't need to worry about it. That's something I can kind of set aside and not spend a lot of extra time reviewing because I got it right. Hemodynamics, I'll look at and I'm like, oh, compliance was the one that I could not come up with the definition of. So maybe I just want to go in and highlight that and then I could fill in the correct answer. And then I'd have a full, complete answer in my skeleton notes, but it would be highlighted. So I would know this was something that I struggled with. Maybe I'd want to make a flashcard on compliance or come up with some other little study tools that will help me remember the things that I struggled with. I go through cardiac output. I had 3 great answers there. I did great on this. But maybe when it came to coronary artery disease, I was a little bit confused and I didn't quite get that right. Then maybe I'll just go through and highlight that as well and remind myself that this is something I need to review more. I need to study more. I need to spend some more time on this topic because it was a little bit of a struggle for me. After you've gone through and compared your skeleton notes that you filled out with those lecture slides, your notes, the textbook, whatever it is that you built those skeleton notes off of, you will know where your knowledge gaps are. And you can look at this and say, okay, I need to study coronary artery disease. I need to make sure I understand what compliance is and whatever else was a bit of a struggle to fill out. You now have a small list of items that need your review and some deeper study when it comes to the cardiac system. And you can keep doing this over and over again. Maybe today you do it, and maybe you had 5 or 6 things that you were not quite sure and didn't quite get the right answer in. So you spend some time studying up on cardiac for the next couple of days. Then you pull out those skeleton notes and you do them again, and you see if you can get them all filled in this time. Maybe this time, instead of missing 5 or 6 things, I just missed 3 or 4 things. Then I know those 3 or 4 things are something that I should give a little bit more attention to as well. I had somebody ask in the chat if Archer provides skeleton notes. We do provide skeleton notes through Intense Prep. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Intense Prep, but it is our 6-week program that is just it's similar to SurePass. It has the components of SurePass, but it has more. It includes 6 weeks of small group tutoring sessions every Monday and Wednesday with the same tutor, where you go over testing strategies, testing anxiety, how to prepare for the NCLEX, and you get that guidance in a group with a tutor. You also get an ebook that includes skeleton notes for all of our lectures. Let me just show you. This is the list of skeleton notes that we provide for you if you sign up for Intense Prep. You will have skeleton notes on all of the major content review lectures. This ebook also has worksheets, it has case studies, it has flashcards in it. It has so many learning activities to help reinforce your learning and to help you prepare for the NCLEX. The other thing that you get with Intense Prep is you get feedback from your tutor on a weekly basis. Every week, your tutor will send you a little video looking through your Q bank, looking through your scores, and figuring out and giving you recommendations for how you can improve those scores, helping you know when you're ready to test. And so those are some of the things that are available through Intense Prep that's just a little bit different than if you just do the SurePass. SurePass is a fantastic program, but it's a little more self-paced and self-regulated. Intense Prep has that guidance of a tutor for 6 weeks to guide you through and to help you get there, and it provides you with these skeleton notes. All right. We talked about Intense Prep. It does include those. So I want to kind of just pull this together. Are these outlines similar to the handouts on the Archer app? Yeah, the handouts in the ebook are similar to the handouts that you'll see on the Archer app, but the skeleton notes are one thing that is unique to Intense Prep, and you can definitely make your own skeleton notes through the process we discussed, but if you want pre-made skeleton notes, Intense Prep is the place to get those. All right, let's kind of pull this all together, how these skeleton notes can really help you prepare and be ready for your NCLEX. I'm going to talk about 2 different little study tools that the skeleton notes really come together with. It's called active recall and spaced repetition. Active recall is actively retrieving information from memory rather than passively reviewing it. And so what this means, passive reviewing would be sitting and reading your notes. You've taken notes, you sit and read them, you watch an on-demand video. That's very passive studying. It's a good starting point and it's important, but it's passive. You need to move on to active recall methods where you are actively figuring out what you know, you're retrieving those memories, and you're finding those gaps. And that's what skeleton notes are all about. You have that outline and you are actively filling them in and figuring out, what do I know? What do I not know? Where do I need to spend more study time? So skeleton notes are a form of active recall. Let's talk a minute about spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is reviewing material at increasing intervals. Why this works is it combats the forgetting curve. What I mean by the forgetting curve is if I gave you a list of 10 things at the beginning of this webinar and asked you all to report those 10 things back to me right now, you would probably remember most of them, maybe 9 out of 10 a few minutes later. If I asked you to give me that list of 10 things tomorrow, you might get 7 or 8 of them if you have a really good memory. If I waited till next week and said, hey, what were those 10 things I mentioned during that webinar? You might have a hard time remembering them. That's the forgetting curve. The longer it goes since you've thought about something, the harder it is to remember. Spaced repetition when you're studying helps to combat that forgetting curve. You review information just before you would be likely to forget it, and you review it at increasing intervals. It encourages active recall, it builds confidence, and it promotes your long-term memory. So for instance, this is what spaced repetition might look like. Day 1, you learned something new. So maybe day 1, you watched the cardiac lecture. You watched it, you took notes, you looked at the slides, you reviewed, and you created some skeleton notes. The next day, you pull out your skeleton notes and you fill them in the best that you can. You find those gaps, you study and review. 3 days later, you review them again. 7 days later, you review again. 14 to 21 days later, you review again. Monthly, you review again. So you take something that you learn and you review it in 1 day, then in 3 days, then in 7 days. So you're having those increasing intervals of reviewing the same information so that eventually you get to the point that you can review it once a month and you know it, you understand it, and it's there for you to remember. Skeleton notes are the perfect way to combine active recall with spaced repetition. It's having you do that active recall. It's an active thing that you're doing, filling in those notes, and it's spaced repetition. It's spreading it out. You can spread it out as much as you want. You can keep doing the skeleton notes over and over again, or you can use different study tools each time you do that spaced repetition. But skeleton notes work great in this situation. All right. So any questions for me on skeleton notes before we finish up today? It looks like we have in the chat the link to Intense Prep. If you're interested in finding out more about Intense Prep and about the opportunities and the other resources that are provided for you, that link is in the chat box. I just want to remind you guys that we have a discount code for all of you that are joining us today for the webinar. 10% off if you use the code I Love Archer. All right, and then just as we finish up today, I want to just remind you that Archer Review is here for you across the nursing lifespan. We start out with pre-nursing materials if you are working towards getting into nursing school, some of those entrance exams and those things to get started, we've got you there. We've got nursing school modules that can be a great supplement if you're struggling with some of those modules during nursing school. Once you've graduated and you're ready to take the NCLEX, we have fantastic PN and RN programs that can help you get that pass on the NCLEX. And finally, if you are moving on towards becoming a nurse practitioner, we also support you there. So Archer can be here from day one all the way through a nurse practitioner. Just want to remind you that Archer Review is more than just test prep. We're your dedicated team of knowledge navigators. We're committed to your success as future nurses. Please trust us to guide and support you every step of the way. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and hope to see you around Archer in the future.